I witnessed firsthand how money could alter people, and it was mentally draining to behold. When my ex-husband, once kind-hearted, discovered my inheritance and my former in-laws, with whom I had a decent rapport, both underwent a transformation, or rather, revealed their true selves. Our divorce ensued due to various reasons, and my once familiar in-laws became strangers. Reports surfaced of their household descending into ongoing chaos and disorder. Years ago, my aunt, my mother's sister, had passed away. She was a career woman and an early investor. My mother often remarked, "Your aunt seemed to have quite a fortune." Though I wasn't particularly interested in her wealth, I occasionally inquired about it. Regardless, what truly captivated me were her values. She was prudent with her finances, cooking meals at home with ordinary ingredients and investing in a few high-quality, long-lasting clothes instead of indulging in excess. I admired her lifestyle deeply. However, during her lifetime, my aunt faced strong prejudice against women who earned more than men. Many viewed her as arrogant, and societal norms suggested that a woman's ultimate happiness lay in marriage and motherhood. As someone who never married nor had children, choosing instead to enjoy her own life, she was often seen as an outsider. Despite the heartless comments directed at her, my aunt carried herself proudly and remained unfazed by others' opinions, an attitude I deeply admired. One day, while visiting her at home and casually sipping tea together on the sofa, she suddenly turned to me and said, "Hey, if something happens to me, I want you to be my heir." Taken aback by her unexpected statement, I asked her to clarify. With a smile but a serious tone, she explained, "You know, I never married or had children, which means I have no one to leave my wealth to after I'm gone. But I don't want to leave it to those who have looked down on me and made fun of me. I'll arrange all the necessary legal documents, and I want to officially designate you as my heir." At the time, I lightly agreed, thinking she was perhaps joking. During that period, my aunt was still in her 40s, and the thought of her passing felt distant, perhaps decades away. As a high school student, I was oblivious to matters of inheritance and legalities, so I didn't take her words seriously. Years flew by as I married, raised children, and navigated the demands of career and childcare. It wasn't until my youngest child graduated and entered the workforce that my mother informed me of my aunt's declining health. I hurried to the hospital where she was admitted, only to find her appearing as vibrant as ever, dismissing any notion of poor health with her characteristic smile. Relieved, I accepted her reassurances, unaware of the gravity of her condition. However, the reality soon set in. My aunt's health deteriorated, necessitating repeated hospital visits. Each time I visited with my child, I witnessed her gradual decline, her cheeks hollowing, her once robust frame now frail. Despite her physical frailty, she maintained her cheerful demeanor, a testament to her inner strength that I had always admired. In those moments, I held on to hope, believing that her enduring smile might yet bring about a miraculous recovery. After my aunt's passing, we gathered for a modest funeral with close relatives. Regret consumed me as I reflected on not spending more time with her, wishing we had shared more moments together. Yet dwelling on what could have been served no purpose now. My children, who had also cherished her deeply, shared in my sorrow, feeling the weight of missed opportunities to connect with her. It was heart-wrenching to witness. A few months later, while still grappling with my emotions, my ex-husband returned from work one evening and handed me a large brown envelope, mentioning that something had arrived for me. Curious and slightly anxious, I couldn't recall any pending legal matters. I examined the sender's details. A law firm. Panic briefly gripped me. Had I unknowingly become entangled in a legal issue? With trembling hands, I cautiously opened the envelope, unsure of what awaited inside. To my astonishment, it contained a letter regarding my aunt's inheritance. In that instant, I realized the gravity of what my aunt had entrusted to me that day. To gather more information, I decided to reach out to the law firm for further details. The lawyer there happened to be an old friend of my aunt's, entrusted with managing her estate and inheritance after her passing. When he disclosed the total amount of my aunt's assets, I was taken aback. It wasn't just a few million yen, but over 400 million yen. Feeling overwhelmed, I called my mother. Upon hearing the lawyer's explanation, she nonchalantly remarked, "Didn't your aunt discuss becoming her heir with you after your high school graduation? You agreed at the time, didn't you?" Her casual response caught me off guard, but considering the substantial sum involved, I was uncertain how to proceed. Nevertheless, my mother calmly advised me to accept the inheritance. pointing out that my aunt had meticulously prepared all the necessary paperwork for me. She warned of potential consequences if I declined, suggesting there might be legal implications. Curious, I asked if she wanted to handle the inheritance herself, to which she casually replied, "Inheritances can be quite a hassle. I'm not sure if you know, but one of Ma's siblings passed away. They had a significant inheritance, but without a will, it caused daily disputes among the siblings and the deceased person's children. Your aunt, on the other hand, left everything properly documented for you, so there shouldn't be any drama for me to deal with. However, you might want to be cautious with your grandparents and your husband," she warned, sighing as if recalling past troubles. The mention that my husband's family could potentially complicate matters over the inheritance surprised me, though at the time, I didn't anticipate it would actually come to pass. A few days later, my ex-husband appeared uneasy. He inquired if the documents from the law firm were related to the inheritance. Puzzled by how he knew, I saw no reason to conceal it and confirmed it honestly. His eyes lit up at the revelation, and he immediately asked about the amount I had inherited. I casually downplayed it, mentioning it was around 10 million yen. However, he seemed to sense my understatement and persisted that there might be more or that I should delve deeper into it. Initially, I tried to humor him and deflect his inquiries, but his persistence became increasingly bothersome. Finally, I snapped, "I already told you it was 10 million yen. Why do you keep asking?" His response was hesitant, as if he harbored doubts, yet he awkwardly replied, "Well, I just have this feeling it could be different." "Please let's end this conversation," I firmly asserted. Strangely, from the next day onwards, my ex-husband's demeanor changed drastically. He began ignoring me. Being equally stubborn, we went for 2 months without exchanging a single word. Suddenly, my former in-laws, who usually gave us notice before visiting, showed up at our house unannounced. I sensed something serious might be up. Then my ex-father-in-law spoke up. "We heard from our son that you recently inherited some assets. And word has it, it's over 1 billion yen. Our house is getting older, and we were thinking of renovating. You've been such a great wife to our son, and we're proud parents. By the way, we were thinking of expanding the rooms for you both, and maybe even living together," my ex-mother-in-law added with a nod. I was taken aback that my ex-husband knew the actual amount of my inheritance, but I was even more surprised by my ex-in-law's audacity in making renovation plans based on that money without even consulting us. They went on about their dream kitchen design and their desire for marble countertops. After a while, I regained my composure and said firmly, "I haven't heard anything about that. We've already made arrangements with a contractor." My ex-in-laws responded with another surprising statement. It was clear they were banking on my inheritance, and their nonchalant attitude about it gave me a headache. I wanted to express so much, but I knew I had to keep my emotions in check. Politely, I asked them to leave for the day and ushered them out that evening. Later, after returning from work, I confronted my ex-husband. Initially evasive, he eventually confessed that he had secretly looked at the passbook detailing my inherited assets without my permission. To clarify, I had securely stored the passbook deep in my dresser, meaning he had searched through the entire room and reached to the back of the dresser to find it. I had reached my limit with his relentless pursuit and fixation. When I informed him about his parents' visit and their inquiries about the inheritance, he exploded in anger. "Your earnings as my wife are our joint assets, so that money is mine too. Using it to renovate my parents' house is only fair, and it's your fault for not disclosing the exact amount," he justified, casting me as the antagonist. To make matters worse, he casually mentioned quitting his job, suggesting, "With that much money, we don't need my income. Why bother with a job I dislike and stress myself out? We could live comfortably and stress-free. Your social status as my wife would also improve. Renovating my parents' house would only benefit us. So why are you so upset?" He said this with a sigh, as if I should understand his logic. Realizing he was beyond reasoning with, I thought to myself, this guy is hopeless. So I relented, telling him he could proceed with the renovation or anything else he wanted, but I made it clear I wouldn't contribute any money. His anger flared even more. Again, he insisted, "We're in this together." But by then, I didn't care what he said. After that, he continued to yell and scream, but I refused to engage. The next day, my ex-husband arrived with his parents, accusing me of changing my stance. I confronted them, saying, changing the story, "Weren't you all making plans without consulting me? Even if you had asked, why should I contribute any money?" This inheritance isn't meant for renovating your family's house or supporting your son who quit his job without discussing it with me." He kept ranting, claiming he had treated me well, and even called me a money grubber. Seeing their true nature disillusioned me, but I knew arguing was pointless. I insisted they leave because there was nothing left to discuss. My ex-husband asked, "What do you mean by that?" I replied bluntly, "Exactly what it sounds like." His expression suddenly turned anxious. "Are you planning to divorce me over this?" he asked nervously. I informed him that any further discussions would involve lawyers and nothing more, then escorted them out, leaving just the three of them standing there. After that, I packed my belongings and checked into a business hotel. Despite my departure, my ex-husband persistently reached out, professing his love and pledging never to divorce. I responded with a straightforward message: "You're only after my money, aren't you?" Then, I turned off my phone. The following day, I visited my parents and explained the situation. They sighed knowingly, having expected this outcome. When they asked about my plans, I decisively stated my intention to pursue a divorce. My mother advised me to prepare for a tough battle since it seemed he wouldn't let go easily. She also suggested looking into other possible actions my ex-husband might have taken, prompting me to hire an investigator. The investigation revealed that my ex-husband had been frequenting nightclubs, which solidified my resolve to proceed with divorce. I engaged a specialized divorce attorney and formally requested a divorce from my ex-husband. Predictably, he refused and insisted that if I wanted a divorce, I must pay alimony and divide our assets. When the attorney clarified that the inheritance I received from my family was not considered marital property, my ex-husband vehemently objected, insisting it couldn't be true. However, when the attorney turned the tables and asked him if he would be willing to give his own inherited money to his wife in a similar situation, he fell silent. The attorney sternly reprimanded my ex-husband for his unreasonable demands. Eventually, he broke down and pleaded for me to foot the bill for the renovation. His plea held no legal standing, and he appeared visibly defeated. Later, I discovered that the renovation had already been arranged, with him having signed the contract under his name, assuming I would cover the costs. Furthermore, it was an extravagant renovation totaling over 10 million yen. He was concerned about affording this expense if we divorced, which explained his desperate attempt to secure my financial support. So, I had no obligation to pay for that renovation regardless of our marital status. Despite this, he persisted and even attempted to negotiate down the cost by half. However, our attorney threatened to pursue legal action against him for extortion if he persisted with his demands. Eventually, he relented. But my ex-in-laws couldn't let it go and later vandalized my parents' house. In response, my father intervened, resulting in a physical altercation where they damaged some potted plants before fleeing. The police arrived, had to restrain them due to their aggression towards the officers, and took them into custody. Naturally, news of the incident spread throughout the neighborhood, becoming a topic of gossip. Amidst this gossip, I casually shared the situation with our neighbors, exposing the greediness of my ex-husband's family. These developments contributed to the resolution of the divorce, with my ex-husband eventually conceding defeat. After obtaining a restraining order against my ex-husband with the help of my lawyer, I knew it was only a temporary measure, typically lasting up to 6 months. Knowing his unpredictable nature, I feared he might disregard the order and potentially pose a danger. This concern led my parents and me to make the difficult decision to relocate from our familiar home. I felt guilty about uprooting my parents, but under the circumstances and the uncertainties we face, we felt it was necessary. After the rushed move, once things settled down, I sat down with my children and explained the situation to them. They were understandably surprised but empathized with me and understood the reasons behind our relocation. Following the move, things initially seemed calm. However, my apprehensions proved valid when reports surfaced that my ex-husband had been seen near our former neighborhood, in defiance of the restraining order. Thankfully, a vigilant police officer noticed his suspicious behavior and intervened, discovering a small knife in his possession which led to his arrest. When they inquired about his intentions, he disclosed his desire to speak with his ex-wife, causing me to shudder with the realization that he had been informed by the lawyer who handled our divorce. Despite relying on the restraining order and hoping to avoid any confrontation by staying at my parents' house, I was overcome with fear, especially after learning he had been released early without incident. Since then, I had lost track of his whereabouts for a while. However, through an acquaintance residing near his parents' residence, I learned that arguments between him and his family had become a daily occurrence since moving into their renovated house. The disputes primarily revolved around financial matters, with frequent assertions like, "It's under your name, so you should be responsible," or "Since it's your father's property, you should cover the costs." These arguments were conducted at a high volume, lacking any attempt to keep their disagreements private, making their disputes audible to everyone nearby. Furthermore, they sometimes hear strange noises like things breaking even after completing the renovations. The situation has escalated to the point where the police have had to intervene and issue warnings. Additionally, there have been disturbing remarks overheard, such as, "If you don't release your wife, you'll live well." Before the inheritance, their relationship with my ex-husband and his family was quite amicable. Who could have predicted that everything would unravel in such a chaotic manner over money? As my mother cautioned, I've come to understand firsthand how unsettling money can be. Occasionally, voices can be heard of my ex-mother-in-law urging him to quickly secure employment, with my ex responding angrily, "Shut up. It appears he is still without a job. Considering his age, finding new employment isn't easy." Meanwhile, because I shared the details of the messy divorce with the neighbors, everyone steers clear of my ex-husband's family and avoids any requests for money. There are even rumors circulating that approaching their house could bring bad financial luck, treating it almost like a cursed place. It's amusing in a way. On the other hand, I've rented a reasonably spacious apartment where I now live with my parents. They reassure me not to worry about them and to focus on my own life. I've decided not to pursue remarriage, preferring to continue living with them as we are. I believe if others were to learn about my inheritance, they might change towards me, much like my ex-husband did. Furthermore, I've never had expensive tastes or indulged in lavish spending. My plan is to maintain the same lifestyle I've always had. I intend to use this inheritance for our future needs, such as when my parents and I grow older and possibly need to move into a care facility, or to celebrate important milestones like my children's weddings or the birth of grandchildren. It's a substantial sum of money entrusted to me by my admired aunt, and I wish to honor her memory by using it wisely, just as she did. Recently, alongside my part-time job, I've delved into learning about investments and money management. It's proven to be quite challenging, and it's given me a newfound appreciation for how skilled my aunt was to manage these things for years. Despite this, my family and I are leading a relatively content life. However, the occasional updates I hear about my ex-husband and his family remain distressing. Yet since our divorce, we've become strangers to each other, and their affairs are no longer my concern. They must resolve their issues independently without involving others. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Until next time.